It only took a matter of hours for the lounge to collapse in a raging typhoon of ice. The building itself still stood, although its integrity was slowly fading with every little creak and groan of the walls. There was not a single warm place left in the frozen fortress. Every surface either coated in ice or freezing under snow and frost. Everest had to trudge through the avalanche that invaded the hallway with great difficulty, pushing her nose through debris and crystallized water. She fell through the other side, tumbling onto the slippery floor. Shaking the snow off herself, the husky charged down the corridor as fast as her weary legs could carry her. She was grateful to be under a stable roof again, having passed through the site of the roof collapse, but the water damage had already painted the ground underneath in a shining glaze. "Dwayne, where is it?" she said aloud, praying her partner was still functioning. The creature, where is it?"
"Lobby,"
came her companion's response, still loyally in his place within the security room.
"It's breaking more windows, every single one it can find. But it's pretty far from you right now. You should be okay."
They went back and forth for a few moments. It felt like an agonizing game of chess, Everest barely able to take 2 steps forward before the monster decided to journey through the vents. Not a single shred of progress could be made without straining amount of observation. At times, Dwayne's delayed responses caused even more anxiety to Everest than the actual creature hunting them did. He couldn't ever give her a perfectly timed response. The Dane always stuttered or felt unsure of himself, or just simply didn't reply immediately. Like a ghost, the creature drifted all throughout the freezing lounge. It moved like a serpent, appearing on one camera only to vanish into the next within mere seconds. Dwayne was sweating bullets in his chair trying to keep up with it, gluing his bloodshot vision to the screens in this frantic game of hide and seek. Several times his barks of panic were audible through the radio, the Dane sounding the alarm that the creature had gone into the vents. Those cursed vents. The ultimate blind spots with no way to keep track of it until it re-emerged. The first time the creature crawled into them nearly led to his own death, and it wouldn't be the last. 3 times did the monster beeline for him, scampering like mad through the ducts, seeking to jump Dwayne from above. It got painstakingly close the 3rd time, the Dane hiding with only a millisecond to spare. The game was taking its toll on them. Dwayne's mind threatened to crack under the overload of information, overwhelming him so fiercely that a single noise in his ears could send him into a breakdown. Everest was struggling through her exhausted body, her chest and muscles tightening from the freezing exertion. Still, she refused to give up, but a voice in her mind was second-guessing her decision in regard to her life. "I'm almost there!" she called along, jumping out of her hiding place. "Just one more turn!" The dog raced ahead. "Come on, Jake! Please be there!" came her desperate pleas, floating into the chilled air. The hallway felt endless, but soon she finally jumped through the doorway to her destination. Everest skidded into the room, her heart seemingly near exploding inside her. The entrance to the safe room stood before her, perfectly disguised in such a way that no patron would ever suspect. The room appeared to be nothing more than a dusty corner of the building, housing an old humming vending machine against the wall. A few isolated tables lined the far wall near it, followed by ice-glistened racks of forgotten ski equipment. The drink machine was completely legit, able to dispense any bottle of cola if there wasn't currently a flood of ice locking up its circuits. It was the area behind the machine where the magic happened. A hidden latch that pushed the drink dispenser aside with a wheezing groan, exposing a wide passage into the perfectly secure safe room. It was difficult to recognize the drink dispenser due to the thick sheet of frost beating down on it from the vent above. Trudging through the snow forming on the ground, the husky made haste to the side of the machine, eyeing the edge up and down for the familiar handle. Come on, come on! She gritted her teeth, struggling to see through the clouded air. She was beyond vulnerable, standing directly under the vent opening, and every second spent underneath it tugged at her nerves. There! She said triumphantly, spotting the tiny handle hiding underneath a sheet of frost. Never had Everest ever thought she'd have to work against the one thing she loved the most. Grabbing it in her paws, she tugged the latch down as hard as she could. It didn't budge. She grunted, tugging the latch down with all her might. No, 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 no! Her paws scratched across the ground as she called all her might forward. Dwayne, she grunted in exertion. The mechanism is frozen!
What?
It means the fucking cold broke the secret door! Everest barked, boiling aggravation rising in her. I'm locked out! With one final tug with everything she had, the frozen handle only silently mocked her efforts. The puppy lost her grip, tumbling backward into the snow. No! No, not like this! Came a surge of panic, the husky watching her only hope freeze in front of her. No! She tried again, grabbing it as tightly as she could. Every attempt she made ended the same humiliating way. Hysteria broke into her, bleeding desperation as she fought with her life against the frozen machine. God damn it! She snarled, pounding her paws into the wall with all the anger she could muster. It bled away slowly, her fire dying as the husky pathetically fell backward into the snow. Dwayne heard the entire thing unfold over the radio.
Everest.
It's hopeless! The husky cried, voice breaking as she stared up at the vent. It's no use. We've lost.
No, we haven't! We have to try another way!
Another way?! Everest lashed, kicking snow across the room. There is no other way! It only has one door! One way in!
Well,
the Dane stuttered, flinching at his friend's rage.
What if we could break through somehow?
Break through?
Didn't half the building just rupture from the water pressure?
Dwayne said, pleading she was listening.
What if we could do the same thing? Bust through the wall using the water?
How would we even do that? The pipes already blew! They can't explode twice!
What about the fire sprinklers?
The fire? Everest twisted her expression, briefly baffled at Dwayne's suggestion. The fire sprinklers? Was he truly an idiot? The sprinklers were just as connected to the pipes as all the others were. How in the world could they be useful? The husky trailed off, looking up at the single minuscule sprinkler head sitting idle on the ceiling. The longer she stared at the tiny piece of metal, the more her mind began to turn, slowly placing the pieces together until a picture formed in her mind. She squinted up at it. Wait a second. She paused. The pipes around the lounge ruptured because water struggled to travel through their ice-filled tunnels. But the sprinklers were different. The pipes connected to them were stationary, tightly sealed from the rest of the pipes until the sprinkler heads were activated by fire. They were just as frozen as the rest of them, but the pressure that fractured the rest of the pipes never reached the emergency sprinklers due to its unique methods of receiving its water, meaning it was still intact. If even a particle of smoke or fire glazed the sprinkler head, the pipes would all unlock at once, forcing hundreds of gallons of water at immeasurable pressure through its ice-filled passage. It was the only thing she could think of, the only plan she had left. Dwayne! Everest exclaimed, staring up at her last hope. We need to trip the sprinklers!
I agree, but how are we going to make a fire in an environment like this?
You don't need a fire to trip sprinklers! Everest jumped up, determination surging in her veins. Her eyes darted in every direction, searching the room for what she needed. A month ago, Rocky told me of an incident that occurred down in Adventure Bay. She scanned the floor up and down, checking every corner with a hardened gaze. Marshall and Chase were playing in the lookout, and they got out of hand. Come on, she thought desperately. There had to be something, anything. Marshall kicked a ball a little too hard, and it struck one of the fire sprinklers in the most perfect way possible. She almost laughed at the memory, powerful resolve fueling her every step. The whole tower was flooded down the elevator. The water damage was almost too much to handle. There it was. A wooden beam that had fallen from the ceiling, likely snapped from its place once the ceiling had collapsed just in the previous hallway. The debris had flung in all directions, placing the exact tool she needed right where she needed it. Grabbing the plank of wood in her teeth, she lugged it up with all the strength she had left. It wasn't considerably heavy, but her teeth were painfully pressing into her gums from the force of carrying it. Powering through the resisting weight of the weapon, Everest dragged herself up one of the tables, nearly slipping on its blanket of ice. Fury charged her in every action, agonizing memories of the horrors she witnessed turning into raw drive. She toiled forward as if she were shoving a boulder up a hill, pulling herself on top of the vending machine, almost stumbling from the unbalanced weight of her plank. The husky was only a few feet from the ceiling now. She could turn her head and stare down the taunting sprinkler head hanging from the ceiling. This was not going to be kind to her jaws, her mind warned her swiftly, but she cared little for such things anymore. Narrowing her eyes at her target, she needed her paws to steady herself. Jumping with all the force she could bring forward, Everest leapt off the machine, holding back the weapon and swinging it into an arc. A clang of impact sounded through the air, and a painful shock traveled down her weapon and struck her teeth full force. Hitting the floor unceremoniously, the husky collapsed onto her stomach, plank falling out of her jaws and landing somewhere away. Tiny clicks of noise tickled her ears, sounded by the fire sprinkler smashed to metal pieces, flinging its bits to the floor. Her head spun with a twisting pain, vision clouding over with audible groans leaving her maw. In her weakened state, Everest looked up at the damage. Not a single drop of water came from the fractured device. "Dwayne," she barely said, "there's no water coming out."
No, there has to be!
The Dane said sharply.
The nozzle itself is frozen shut, but surely you still tripped it. The water has to be coming through the pipes, and fast! I think that ceiling is about to blow!
What? Everest tried to stand, her body straining from the impact. Dwayne's voice filled with alarm.
Do you know how much velocity those things shoot out water? If the normal pipes took out entire walls, then you need to get out of there now!
His voice cut off, seemingly stopping on a dime. Huh? Dwayne? The husky looked down at her collar. Dwayne, what happened? No response. Dwayne, answer me! She barked into her radio. A low rumbling was gently emitting from the ceiling. Pawing at her radio, she repeatedly called his name to no avail. She tried tuning the radio off and on again. She tried reconfiguring the signal. She even tried calling the security office with what little remained of her spare phone. Unease rose in her every second she went without hearing his voice, the puppy pacing around the frosted room endlessly calling Dwayne's name. The creature couldn't have snatched him. She would have heard it over the line. It almost felt like he had hung up on her. But why would he do that of all things? It was one of the worst things they could do, breaking their communication. Stewing in her discomfort, Everest could only come to one final solution. A scenario she couldn't even believe. Someone had remotely severed their connection. The room was churning with bubbly echoes in all directions. Fiercely powered water ramming through icy caverns with such velocity, the pipes struggled to keep together. What? Panic flared through the puppy, her sense of direction slipping.
What's happening?
Then, like a ghost appearing in the darkness, a brand new voice connected to her radio. A voice she had never heard before in her entire life.
Remain calm,
Came a hardened, authoritative tone. The speaker was completely deprived of emotion, talking to her as if she were no more than a mindless fish. Everest jumped in surprise at the new presence.
Who is this? Who's talking to me? Where's Dwayne?
She was backing up into the wall, not noticing the drips of water forcing through the wallpaper.
Listen to me.
The voice commanded.
You and your friend are now the sole property of the Arcline Foundation.
They growled.
Do not leave the premises. We are coming to extract you and secure the Mintiaga creature.
The what?
The mystery speaker was audibly losing their patience.
Do not bring harm to our asset. The Mintiaga is not to be harmed, defaced, or damaged under any circumstances. We are coming to get you. Do not resist us.
The connection clicked off, fully deactivating her radio in the process. There was no hope of reaching Dwayne now. The husky spiraled in her confusion, pacing all around the room.
Wait! Don't leave me alone in here!
Came her frantic yell. The world dimmed to silence around her, churning anxiety clouding her mind. Only her breathing seemed to echo in her ears, rapid panic locking up her body and thinking, until the silence was broken. A gator-like snarl sounded in her ears, followed by a furious roar tearing through the air. Everest turned at the sound, but saw only the collapsed hallway flooded with the blizzard, her eyes seeing absolutely nothing. That unforgettable, horrifying nothing. The Mintiaga stood atop the pile of freezing debris, shaking with gritted rage as it stared down at the husky. Everest knew it was there. The creature may have been invisible, but the incoming winter above was gradually painting its body with frost. A gentle outline of snow coated the monster, exposing its form to its prey. A hissing jaw of teeth were glazed with glistening ice, snowflakes sparkling on its elongated body. Two snake-like tails, ending in sharpened spearheads, were shining with the winter, aching to mix the white with red. Four legs scrunched their claws, climbing down the pile of snow and broken wood, approaching the husky. Her body was unmoving. Everest stood petrified as if the frozen floor had ensnared her. Her breathing violently shook with her heartbeat. The puppy's entire body paralyzed in terror as death stalked her before her very eyes. Dwayne was gone across the lounge. Whoever the voice was left her to die, and there was not a single phone to make an attempt to lure it away. Its eyes, its beady, unblinking eyes stared into hers with such intensity, its gaze could travel through her skull. The sound of rushing water rumbled in the ceiling, a small drip leaking from the broken sprinkler nozzle.
What?
Everest squeaked, taking a hopeless step back.
What are you?
The Mintiaga towered over her, its half-invisible body twinkling with frost. Its pupils shrunk by just a hair, its mouth curling into a wide, sadistic grin. The exact same smile that haunted her from the attack at the outpost. It had always been there. For days, the Mintiaga lurked in the base it broke free from, slaughtering the soldiers and wearing their bodies. But no matter what form or body it wore, two parts of itself always remained uncovered. Its weaponized tails, and the unfazed smile it loved to sport, letting its glee be the final thing its victims saw before they met a terrible fate. Even then, the body it currently wore wasn't ideal, but it was helpful against the cold. A loud snap came from the ceiling, followed by several more in all directions. Dozens of snaps, cracks, and pops of blistering metal breaking under pressure screeched at every angle. Everest screamed as the noise attacked her, covering her head instinctively as high-pressured water started tearing through the walls. Even the Mintiarga hesitated, looking to the side in confusion as it tried to place the sound. A sound of bending wood rose in the air, rising sporadically with the violent torrents of water flooding the inner workings of the building. The realization hit Everest like the rapidly incoming blast. The puppy never had any time to react to what was about to happen. Watching the wall closely, uncertainty befell the Mintiarga, the powerful creature taking only a nervous step back. Then everything erupted. Every surface exploded in an instant. The plaster of the walls obliterated to soggy dust as tidal waves of water smashed out the wood and metal, flooding the floors and caving in the ceiling. Both animals were swept up in the water. Everest launched back and painfully slamming against the vending machine, while the Mintiarga was tossed across the room by the floor. Even as the water drained, ruptured pipes above endlessly sprayed water into the room, already a deadly combination with the blizzard. The water began solidifying in seconds, forming into a freezing slush that caught in Everest's fur as she tried to stand in the storm. She was encapsulated in ice by the time she raced back to the vending machine, the wall around it well shredded to bits. The damage just barely exposed the hidden hallway, creating a small opening in the wall just the perfect size for a puppy to slip through. Ignoring her rapidly slowing heartbeat, Everest powered through her freezing fur, pulling herself through the opening. Roaring in all directions, the Mintiarga whipped and speared its nails into anything that moved, its vision blinded by the ice. Its body was soaked in the water, freezing so fast the creature's body crunched with ice as it raced about. Disoriented and fearful, it lunged into the ceiling vent and fled the scene, disappearing into the darkness of the building. She had already crossed onto dry floor, the site of the explosion well behind her. Her speed gradually slowed to a weak state. The ice coating her fur had drowned out all insulation her body could make. But still she pressed on, the mental image of Jake embracing her being the only piece of light able to keep her going. "Jake!" she yelled down the plane corridor, taking a small flight of stairs down. "Jake, I'm here!" A door entered her vision, standing at the end of the hall. The safe room. "Jake, The puppy sped up, icicles forming off her lips. "I'm here." She approached the door. "I know you're in here! I can smell you!" she called into the silence, recognizing the smell of her owner instantly. Such was the average skill of a dog. A smell was unforgettable. "Jake, I'm here! She weakly trudged up to the door, pushing it open with her nose. Finally, after everything, she was finally here. After all the scares, the horrors, the cold, she had finally reached the safe room. Her legs were shaking with frozen weakness, the dog running off of pure adrenaline at this point. Passing through the doorway, she walked into the metal-coated room, seeking only the arms of her owner. Her voice gave out, the puppy stopping completely in her tracks. There he was. She stared forward at her owner, finally laying eyes on him after all these hours. But his loving arms never came, his embracing voice never breaking the silence, his warmth never banishing her cold. Standing still as her world crumbled around her, Everest felt her mind break. "Jake?"